Voices from the Mausoleum is brought to you by the You Run Podcast Network and yourunpodcast.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum, and welcome to another indie horror author interview. Today, I'm joined by a new friend, a new indie horror author that I just connected with really genuinely not that long ago that I'm very excited to have for the first time on the show, Amanda Headlee.
Hello.
Thank you so much for making time. I know we had to reschedule. Things in the South have been insane, but I thank you for making time. I'm really excited to talk to you.
No problem. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So the main focal point of our conversation is going to be your collection that came out in September. But because I am relatively new to you and it's your first time on the channel, I did want to talk about some of the other stuff that you've done, just for a little bit to help people get to know you. So I know you've been in a bunch of different anthologies. You've had shorts and quite a few anthologies. And then you had your first novel, Till We Become Monsters, which I added immediately. I was reading the little description on Amazon. I was like, oh, add that to my list of stuff that I want to read. It sounds like it's going to be super up my alley. And then, of course, this is your most recent release, which came out again in September. And that is this one, which is Madness and Greatness Can Share the Same Face.
Yes, I love that title.
Yeah. So I have to ask this as kind of a general question. Do you really like writing short stories? Is that like your comfort zone? Do you like writing longer stories more, or?
Writing short is very hard for me because I think I'm probably overly wordy. Some of my editors are like, you have too many filler words. You need to cut it down. But I find writing short, like under 10,000 words, to be very difficult. And it takes me a very, very, very long time to get a story done. Like I have a story coming out next year in an anthology called Strange New Moons. And when I first got invited to it, I wrote the story in February. I got invited. I think it was February, March. I can't remember. I could be a little off there.
Yeah. Wrote
the story, sat on it till I got the official contract, and then saw what the word count is. And I'm like, shit, I am.
Yeah.
So it took me months to get it cut down and rewritten till it got distilled down to, I think it's like 5,000 words.
Wow.
I hate writing short, and I think that's why I have a few short stories out there, but there's probably more I could put out there. It's just, I usually miss the deadline.
Oh, yeah, I get that. Yeah. So I know that you have the one novel, and I kind of I did want to talk about that one a little bit, mostly for personal reasons, because I'm super interested in this one and I want to just talk about it for just a second. And I guess I just kind of wanted to start with, when you're getting ready to write something new, whether it's in this example, the novel, or even if it's a short story, where do you draw inspiration from when you're getting ready to write stories?
Usually it's just like little things that just happen in life or that I come across in life that just stick with me and kind of eat away at my brain until I put it on paper. Till We Become Monsters. I think it was just, as I grew older and just looking at family dynamics and trying to dissect family dynamics, because that novel I like to call, it's a story about folklore, family dysfunction, and cannibalism. And so like, I'm just very fascinated by family dynamics and the family dynamics and how varied it is across. I mean, no one's the same. And so I think I explored a lot of that in that novel. And you'll probably see a lot of that in the collection as well, but it's usually, I get inspired by, like, there'll just be something that just sticks in my head forever. And then it winds up on paper somewhere.
Yeah, I get that. It's crazy when everybody, you talk to different authors, you get to know different people in the writing community. And I will tell you, as many as you meet, no one ever answers these types of things the same way. And I love that because it's always interesting to hear, especially I feel like in the horror genre, because there's really just, I mean, when you're talking about horror and variety of things you could do with it, the
Mhm.
possibilities are endless. So I'm always curious about where those muses come from and where they like how they turn into stories. And I know where the collection, even though it is already out, links are going to be in the description. So please go follow Amanda and go check out the collection. But I did want to ask this when where did these stories in this collection come from? Were these stories that you already had? Was
Mhm.
it a overall decision to be like, I'd really like to do it? Because this is your first personal collection, right? Of
Yes.
just you. Yeah. And just kind of where that came from.
Yeah, this is kind of a mixed bag. Some of them I had written many, many years ago, and they just kind of sat there and festered until I found a place for them, and I rewrote them and
Yeah.
wrote them better because I am a much different author than what I was when I started.
Yeah.
Like I even see that between Till We Become Monsters and this collection, how much my writing has vastly evolved,
Oh, wow. Okay.
which I love about that because
Yeah.
we're always growing
Yeah. No,
and
for
we
sure.
always should grow.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
But with this collection, some of them were some stories that I had sitting around. Some of them were from a writing group that I was in, and they were
Okay.
stories like a lot of them started out as 2,000 word short stories,
Oh, wow. Okay.
very poorly written because I can't write short. Um, like there was no meat to those stories, but
Sure.
it was just like I had liked the idea and expanded upon them.
Yeah.
I think there's 3 in this collection that did get published elsewhere, but I
Okay.
refreshed. So they're going to
Yeah.
be kind of new. So if others have read them before in other anthologies, they have
Yeah.
been refreshed and put in this one.
Okay.
The first short story in Madness and Greatness is actually kind of a prequel to Till We Become Monsters.
Oh,
So
that's good to know.
little bit. Doesn't matter what you read first, but
Okay.
there's tie-in. But
Ooh.
the thing that I noticed I was doing with these short stories is I was getting them collected and getting them together to put
Yeah.
into a publication. I
Yeah.
started noticing I was building in, and I was doing this, unconsciously or subconsciously doing this.
Yeah.
There's ties; they're all tied together. Like it could
Ooh,
be a
I love that.
character, it could be a situation, it could be something that ties them together in a future story, or well, the novel I'm currently working on will tie a lot of these stories together.
That's super no, so I always say like when you're going into, reading an anthology, I think anthologies typically are exciting because when when all the stories are by one author, you get a really kind of intricate look at what that author is capable of,
Mhm.
because typically even in the ones that have like a connection story, or I call it like an overlap,
Yeah.
where it has like a story at the beginning that is like why you're learning all these other stories, and then it has like the piece at the end that kind of connects it in that way, and it ends up being like this full-fledged story. um Even in that case, the stories typically vary so much in experience that you really are just getting like a really good taste of like what this author is capable of. And I love, my favorite types of anthologies are ones where the things are connected in some kind of way. I love when people do overlaps. There's one I'm drawing a total blank on that I read not that long ago that had characters that were in several of the stories, but it was like almost like sort of like an American, AHS,
Oh,
like kind of,
yes.
you know what I'm saying? Kind of like that kind of thing. But I love when people do that. And random stories are fun too, but I
Mhm.
love that. That has me like super pumped about it because I think that's a super cool concept. Was
Yeah.
that on purpose?
It I didn't intentionally start it that way, but,
Okay.
like, over the past few years, like, I've had this mythos developing, and
Sure.
I think that kinda started to seep in.
I get
Like
you.
I
Yeah.
said, subconsciously, I
Yeah.
wasn't forcing it, it just kinda started happening, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna roll with this," and
Yeah.
so, like, you'll see a mention of one name or sorry, the existence of one character be mentioned as a name in another book, that kind of is a trigger for something that happened. It all just started to happen. I had no control over it.
Huh.
and
That's
and
exciting. I love it.
actually, this is my notebook so I can keep track of it all.
Yeah, because that's going to be my follow-up, is like trying to keep all of that stuff organized. Like, are you a hop around? Do you write things in like order? Like, what's your approach when you're actually trying to get the stories out and
Um,
done?
this was chaos. This was absolute madness.
Madness and greatness. I'm
No, well,
following you
hopefully
now.
the greatness is there, but it was definitely madness. I don't know about the greatness, but the madness is definitely there. Um, this honestly, this was so piecemeal because a lot of the stories, some of the stories go back to, I think the oldest one I wrote in 2016, maybe
Oh, okay.
2017. So some of them are pretty old that I
Yeah.
rewrote, and then others. I think Carrion Eaters, I finished that one like a couple weeks before I handed it into my publisher.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so some of them are very, very fresh.
Okay.
But like with a novel, I
Yeah.
always like literally the last line is the very first thing I start with. I'm so backwards. I start
Oh,
with, yeah,
interesting.
like I know exactly how it ends. I
Uh-huh.
never know how it starts. And
Okay.
usually a few things happen in the middle that I want to have happen.
Okay.
Which is so weird because my day job is a project manager.
That's not the steps of project
No,
management.
no, but we get there in the end.
That's all really, I mean, that's really all that matters, though,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But it starts to like I have those touch point, like I guess I create milestones. I mean, that's what project managers do. We create milestones. And so
Yes.
the
I've
ending's a
done that. Yep.
milestone. There's a couple scenes that need to happen. Those are milestones. And then I go and start with the beginning. So it's like building my
Okay.
project plan.
Yeah. Yeah. I did project management for a while, and it can be hard if you are a hop around person, which I am. Unfortunately, it's creating your own chaos without
Yes.
being able to control it. And it doesn't always work in those situations because there's these expectations that you're going to follow this like very strict formula. So that's awesome, though. Yeah, I'm I'm always baffled by, because like when I try to write, I do write chronologically, because
Mhm.
if I don't, I will forget what I have done, and then I won't remember to bring it back up or make it make sense later. I'm like, okay, I've got this idea. I need it to link. It's like, well, it's got to wait till I get there. I can't, because, and then there's like people, who are like, in your case, you start at the end. There's people who
Mhm.
hop around, who do different things. I know, Catherine Silva told me when we talked to her about her most recent release, she was like, I said, "Did you know you were going to do a sequel?" She was like, "No." I was like, "Did
Mhm.
you do any planning?" She was like, "No, I just wrote it." And I was like, "You are a magician. Like, how, I
Yeah.
don't understand the brains. It's insane. And it's honestly, it's impressive, because I don't know how you do it."
But yeah, I don't know how she does it either because she has such a beautiful mind. And I'm like,
Yes,
how did
she
you
does.
just snap your fingers and this just came into life?
And and I love how, like, because Kat is such a sweet and genuinely just like gentle soul. And I do think that she could probably hurt somebody if she really needed to. I think
Oh,
that that's probably in her, but she's just such a genuinely kind person. And so when she's talking about it, she kills me because she's like so nonchalant, like it's no big deal. And I'm like, Kat,
I,
bro,
I
I've
I
read the
can see
book. It's a
that.
big deal.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yes, I love. Yeah, big fan of Catherine Silva. More of like, I started out as a fan, and then we became friends because we've done some content together. But she's great.
Oh yeah, her
Um,
work is exceptional. For everyone who is listening, read her stuff.
yeah, she's
Just
great.
go buy it all now. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's so good. I own everything she has put out.
Same.
I
Except her
feel like I'm
newest one. I want to
missing.
get that one for her in person at AuthorCon.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I'm missing the second Vox book. I have the first one, and I have all of the Hollow Oblivion books, all of them, even the little baby ones.
That's I
Those are
have no
that
words.
was my
Oh,
introduction. That was my
yeah.
introduction to Cat. And then I have signed copies of Dead and Undead, Undead Folk and Dead Folk. I have both of those. Yeah, a big fan, and genuinely a fan of her as a human being. I think she's just the best. I love her. I wanted to talk about the cover because I feel like this cover is just like, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, if somebody were to say, Madness and Greatness Can Share the Same Face, that's the title of the book. This is literally like the perfect cover for that title.
It's so funny because this is not what I originally envisioned.
No?
No, not even close.
Okay.
My publisher, Woodhall Press, so they have
Yeah.
an in-house designer, LT, and like he sent me a questionnaire of what kind of senses do you want to evoke and all that stuff. And I had sent some kind of images of, I don't know, it's very woman focused, and it was kind of like a face that was like splitting into two, where you had like this face of madness looking in this direction and a face of madness or greatness looking in this direction.
Right.
It's really hard to explain. But I do think, though, at one point I did put a picture in there of Two-Face from Batman. And I think he so he gave me, I think, 4 or 5 mock-ups, and all of them different variations.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I saw this, I went, oh my gosh, this is it. This is it. And originally, I think it was just like black. I think it was just black with the tan background. And I'm like, I really loved how the red popped in the Till We Become Monsters.
Yes, that cover's gorgeous.
I love that one. And I'm like, the red is what always draws people into that book. And I'm like, I need a different color to pop on this book.
Yeah.
I'm like, hot pink. I need some pink.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I want to kind of up the ante with some gold splashed in there, because the very last story, the gold will make sense. We'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
It's basically, well, I'm not going to give any away.
Yeah.
Right? But the gold will make sense at the very end. But so yeah, he went back, played with it, and did this, and I'm like, that's it. It works.
I think great call on the colors, because I feel like, and there's nothing wrong with this, because I have a natural horror appreciation for red and black, right? Mm-hmm. Everything horror is red and black, like literally everything. But I love the use of bright colors like neon. So like our logo is lime green and black, but pinks and purples and like jewel tones are just like, I think just go so well for the genre. And so when I saw the cover for this, I was like, that's insane. I love it so much. And I love, God, the concept of putting your name.
I know.
What?
Like that, like I'm like, I don't know how you came up with this, but it's brilliant. This is it. It was like the whole group of us at my publisher, we all looked at it, and it was like, this is the one. This is the one. Great. And I sent some of the concepts to some friends, and everyone picked this cover. And I'm like, yep, we have a winner.
Yeah, it's the one, right? Yeah.
It is the one. So yeah, I'm very happy how this one turned out.
Yeah, I think you absolutely should be. I think it's stunning. And the biggest thing is, we say, oh, don't judge a book by its cover, but we do. And if a cover, I can't even tell you how many books I've bought, not because I read the back or because I knew the author, but because of the cover. Like, it sticks out. Like it's gonna draw someone's attention to it. And that's perfect. That's what you need. That's what you want. Yeah.
It's so, I love sitting at conventions and having people come up. Like, I want people to come up for the books, but it is always like, everyone always says, oh, great cover. And then they'll like pick both up, and then they're like, which one do I get? And I'm like, just buy them both.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, you want both. Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah.
Still, like you said, you don't want to judge a book by a cover, but sometimes you do.
Yeah. And I've made that mistake of not reading something or not picking something up quickly because of the cover, and then end up really loving the book. That absolutely happens. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but I definitely think the covers, you want them to pull people in. And I think this one and Till We Become Monsters, both, like, if you see them immediately, they're going to catch your attention, even if you're not looking for them. You know what I mean? And I was looking, I think, through the table of contents for this, and I didn't see a story, I think, with this title. So I was going to ask where the title for Madness and Greatness came from, and where that came from.
Yep. The last story will reveal that. It'll kind of
Okay.
like tie everything up. But
Oh, okay.
like the one, it was funny because I had kind of wrote something not quite like the title
Okay.
in the story, but there was like this underlying hum of this character trying to figure out, is she achieving greatness or is she falling into like the depths of despair and insanity and things of that nature. And as like I heard, like this character just kind of sat in my head, and
Yeah.
I always remember I had heard this phrase, the phrase "madness and greatness can share the same face," and it probably has something to do with Two-Face and Batman. I don't know. I don't remember where I heard it, but it
Sure.
always stuck with me. And then I remember George R.R. Martin wrote something
Mm-hmm.
in I don't remember which book it was, but it was
Yeah.
basically like madness and greatness are two sides of the same coin or something like that. And so
Yeah.
those phrases just always stuck with me. And
Yeah.
so as I was writing that final story, I had written madness and greatness can share the same face on a Post-it note and just stuck it to my
Yeah. Okay.
to my screen, and it just kind of
Yeah.
sat there. And when I was doing the one of the final edits before I handed everything over to my publisher, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, there's kind of a trend in almost all the stories where there's one character that you're kind of like, where are they laying on that scale between madness and greatness?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Okay.
huh, this title kind of fits. I think this will be the title of the book.
I love that. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the last story is called Where the Elk Roam. That'll kind of wrap it all up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm super, I'm super intrigued. Yeah, because I love that. I think the title is insane and I love it. And I know it's like nothing like anything you just said, but anytime the like being mad, right, or being or falling into madness is always just like a theme that I'm always super into, like always. It always makes me think originally of like Alice in Wonderland, always.
Yeah.
I can't help it. And then you add the big smile. It just immediately that was where my head went. So it's just the stories that are around those kinds of concepts, I think can just be really, really great. And so I'm super excited about checking out the collection because I was going to, and then the other thing I wanted to ask, just, obviously without giving too much away is what are some of the things that people can expect to find in these stories, as far as like subgenres, points of interest, that kind of thing.
Yeah. There's definitely an underlying tone of cosmic horror in a lot of them. I always love psychological horror, so that's scattered throughout.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Obviously, there has to be a little bit of cannibalism because for some reason I have a sick fascination with that. It's not the act of cannibalism; it's the consumption. It's the need of some people having to consume another person to get the aspects of what they want out of that person. Like it just, So there's a lot of that.
I get that. Yeah.
Some creature features. And I don't want to call it, my mother's probably going to cringe when I say this, but a few scatterings of demons.
Oh, okay.
Hijinks.
Cool. Yeah, I love that it sounds like it's going to check a lot of boxes. Because you had a short in a Wendigo anthology, yes?
Yes.
I don't think you can see him because he's like down here, but I have a drawing of a Wendigo right here. I also apparently have I also have a giant one. I probably can't pull my sleeve up. It's too tight. I have a giant tattoo of one right here on my arm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Super into Wendigos. Not something I tell many people in my real life. But especially people at work, like, oh, what is that? I'm like, it's just a monster. I can't tell people I have a Native American cannibalistic creature on my arm. But anyway, no, I love, I'm super excited. Collections, I'm such a big fan of anthologies in general. I love reading them. I think some of the best ones are ones where it's like author collections. I have so many of them from single authors that they just make such great additions. And also I'm a super slow reader naturally. I can't help it. And And so I always feel like I'm making a lot more progress when I read anthologies, because you get to read something a little bit shorter, right, than
Yeah.
like a full-fledged a novel. And so it's always cool in that way.
They're a lot of
Yeah,
fun to write because you can experiment with different voices and different writing styles.
yeah.
And I think that
No,
I had a lot of fun with this because I
yeah.
don't know, it's probably the way the characters sound in my head that I feel like every story sounds different. Whether that actually does sound different, you'll have to let me know. But it's like
Sure.
one's very southern kind of sounding, and another one's
I
very
get that.
futuristic. So
Yeah.
we'll see what people think of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's actually a perfect segue into something else I was going to ask you, which was, what are you hoping people feel when they walk away from this collection after reading it in completion?
Oh, wow, that's such a great question. Um, I hope they feel like a little disturbed
Yeah.
because it
Right.
is horror. Like I don't maybe a little bit of what the F was that?
Sure.
In a good way, like in a
Mhm.
healthy, Clay McLeod Chapman way of
In a horror way.
yes,
Yeah.
in a horror way.
I gotcha. Yeah.
But it's like a lot of my stories kind of like go back to the root cause, or sorry, the root of communication and us being open with one another. And we all have these feelings, and we shouldn't be forced to hide our feelings. And so like a lot of the downfalls that my characters exhibit is because they either don't feel safe enough to talk about their feelings, and so they hide and
Mm.
repress them and get into trouble. Or two, they do talk about their feelings and they get attacked for them. So it's learning to. I just want people to be kind. Just be kind to one another.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I love
so
that.
I
Yeah.
kind of hope, even though really, really awful bad things happen in this story to a lot of my characters,
Sure.
I think the underlying message I want people to take away is be understanding and be kind of one another, support and love one another.
Yeah.
We're all in this game together.
Yeah. No, I'd love that. I think I love reading, another horror author actually said this. Sorry, I'm totally spacing on who it was. But that horror is best when it's a practice in empathy. And I
Yeah.
think that rings true, because I think the I can watch the turn your brain off horror, the silly over the top fun horror, but the stuff that really sticks with me is the stuff that had me feeling things at the end of it, where it was something I couldn't stop thinking about, or it made me feel emotions I wasn't prepared to feel, or, that kind of thing. And so anytime horror can invoke emotions outside of
Mhm.
fear or, discomfort or whatever, it's always like mad bonus for me, because it's just something that makes it, to me, a lot easier to connect with the characters. You care more about what's happening in the story.
Mhm.
You're invested overall. So I love that you said that. I think that's great. And I'm like super, I'm probably just going to get them both at the same time and then just see what happens. Because I know for a fact, I have like zero doubts in my mind that I'm absolutely going to love Till We Become a Monster. Like I'm just going to eat it up. But I really like, the more you talk about the stories and like kind of how you got them ready and like the way they, like, I'm like super amped to read them and,
Aw.
just see what they're all about and talk about them again eventually.
Oh, I'm
Um,
excited to hear that. Well,
yeah.
horror should be an awakening when you
Yes.
read horror, not when you
Oh,
experience horror, though
no, no,
sometimes.
no.
But when you read horror or you
Yeah.
watch those movies, I mean, it should be an awakening. You should
Yeah.
walk away from it different, better, in a better way, not like,
Just
oh my gosh,
different.
I'm going to hide under my bed and cry for the rest of my life. It should be,
Sure.
wow, this shifted my focus on a few things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it takes a few days afterwards to get to it. Because that's
Mhm.
happened to me a few times where I've watched something and I realized it made me feel a lot, but I didn't necessarily know how to process that or break it up into what it was meaning to me in the moment. But I think that's when you know that you've really accomplished something, is
Mhm.
when somebody can read something you've written and walk away and just be like, damn, like, that has changed XYZ, or now I'm thinking about this and in this way, or whatever the case may be. So no, I love that you said that. I think that's great. Um, well, cool. So Madness and Greatness Can Share the Same Face is already out. Links
Mhm.
will be in the description for the episode, so you can go ahead and get yourself a copy, as well as links where you can find Amanda, so you can copy. You don't want to copy her. It's late. I'm sorry. Don't copy her. That's against the law. No, where you can click the link and go to her page and follow her, not copy her. And if you want to copy her, do what she says. Be kind and be nice. But other than that, don't copy her. Anyway, cool. Well, thank you again for making time to hang out and talk about your book. Really excited to. I was looking at some of there's already some thoughts out about it, right? If I'm not crazy, I think I've already seen a few posts.
There were a couple out. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So if you read indie horror in general, but specifically we're talking about Amanda tonight. So if you read, please leave reviews. They're so helpful. They are so helpful to indie horror authors. Please, 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 please leave reviews. It's great to post that you got the book, but also please go post a review of the book as well. It's super helpful. So.
I know. It's like, I love seeing what people have to think. I know people say don't read your reviews, but I do because, like I said earlier, you're always growing. So I want to see, some things are a matter of opinion, but other things people have, like, I know there were some reviews with To Become Monsters that people were 100% right on. And it's like, okay, I'm going to learn from that and, evolve my writing, which I feel like I have. So be honest in your reviews and please leave them because it helps us as authors.
Super helpful. Yeah, no, for sure. For sure.
Well, but cool. No, Angel, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming. I really appreciate you making the time to chat. In general, the channel is just a big fans of anything indie horror, but I have the soft spot for the authors. My co-host Steve typically focuses more on the filmmakers, but I love working with indie horror authors. It's crazy to me because I've read so much indie horror that like I don't even care about mainstream horror anymore. It just it's like it pales in comparison. Like it's just not as good. And so, and I feel like a lot of the people in the community are just so cool and nice. And I always enjoy the conversation. So thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I think that's going to wrap up this episode of Indie Horror author interviews. Check out the links in the description. Go follow Amanda. Go check out Madness and Greatness Can Share the Same Face, as well as, the other anthologies she's in, but even the novel, Till We Become Monsters as well, which is definitely something that will be on its way to me soon, I think, because I was reading about it and I'm super excited. And yeah, that's going to wrap up this episode. So thank you all so much for hanging out with us. Hope you have a good rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.